War Eagle! Welcome to the Auburn Tigers football podcast. Here are your hosts, Brett Mason and Jamie Thomas.
Here we go. Welcome to week 4 of the Auburn Tigers podcast, broadcasting live from the comfort of our custom leather Alabama and Auburn recliners. I'm Brett Mason. My co-host, as always, Jamie Thomas. War Eagle, man.
Roll Tide, buddy. Hey, why don't you tell everybody you opted for the Alabama recliner instead of the Auburn?
You know you've lost your mind, man.
Bandwagon Bama fan there.
You know you've lost your mind. If you'd like to see the custom recliner chairs that we're talking about, you can go to southeasternfootball.com/chair. And if you're like, man, I'd like to be watching the game from one of them puppies this fall, we've worked out a deal where you get a 9% discount if you order from our website. That's southeasternfootball.com/chair. And I highly recommend the Auburn chair. I'm just saying.
This Alabama one is nice and cushy.
It seems to sit better, and it does better math than the Alabama chair.
Yeah, this nice suede microfiber, man. I feel like it's going to suck me right in.
I do love the microfiber, though. I'm going to be honest with you. A little bit better than the leather. But the problem is it has the Alabama logo on it.
Yeah, well, that'll make you better.
So we're talking about week 1. Fall camp is wrapped up, and so we'll just dive right in. And there's not a ton for us to talk about, but there's a few things. And some things I think are interesting. Some things are just par for the course. It's hard to get a lot of exciting stuff out of week 1 camp. Although, leave it to kids who are 18, 19-year-old. They will give you something to talk about.
Yeah, they sure will.
You know. The main thing I saw coming out of week 1 for Auburn was the players on defense really talk about how much more physical their practices are this year. Everybody that was around last year, Trey Williams really spoke up a lot. I think he actually said it was 10 times more physical this year than it was last year. If that's true, that's awesome. He may be exaggerating. Either way, if they're getting that perception and Muschamp is got a process in place that's awesome. I think that only probably bodes well for the defense, man.
He's known for running a tough camp. He's always been that style of coach. What you have to worry about, though, is maybe he won't wear these guys out before the season starts. Yeah,
I actually saw him. I saw an article where people were complaining a little bit about fall camp not being like it used to be, where you couldn't do practices twice a day. You can only do it once now. And I'm like, I think in 105-degree heat, they're probably still getting worked out pretty good.
Well, at the same time, it's not like it used to be either. I mean, back then, we practiced, we started late summer, practiced early in the fall, and then football season was over in December. These guys are on workout programs year-round, so it's really not like they need the two-a-days like they used to have.
We finally got to hear in some detail from Muschamp what he thought about was going on with the defense. Again, man, it's just one. It isn't even a full weekend. It's just a weekend. He talked a little bit about depth at all positions, and I found what he said about freshman play to be interesting. He was asked about having some depth at certain positions and what was his opinion on playing freshmen. And I thought his answer was simple but brilliant. And I don't know if you saw this, but his philosophy is basically the farther you get away from the ball, the more younger you can go. In other words, you can't be inside line freshman, but you move out from the ball some. It makes it a little bit easier to rotate other people in because you get them up to speed faster and there's less involved. So it leads me to believe that he's going to try to do some deep rotation if he can at some of those positions, which Auburn's just going to have to do. I mean, they don't have a lot of choice at some of those positions, so we'll see how it works out. But he was very adamant that he's done that every year he's ever been DC, and it's not a problem. Everything's going to be fancy, hunky-dory, and all that kind of stuff, so I look forward to it. Looking at inside line, Dontavius Russell and Montravius Adams, I think, are two players that are going to probably bear the burden of that line and take it probably on their shoulders from the inside standpoint. And I really liked what they said about them and how they're stepping up, especially Russell. Adams was okay last year, but it seems like Dontavius Russell is stepping up, and there's a lot of weight on their shoulders in there. But we'll see. I mean, he was a pit bull coming out of high school. If he could have that tenacity and hold up at the SEC level, then it'd be great. But you know how that goes. But we'll see. I mean, I'm worried about the inside a little bit for Auburn this year.
You have to be mean. We haven't seen how mean these guys are. I mean, look at the last several great defensive linemen that have come out of Auburn. You think Nick Fairley. You think go all the way back to Tracy Rocker. I mean, those guys were just mean. They love to hit people. They love to rip heads off. And you've just got to have that attitude to play that position. And we just don't know what it's going to be like for those guys yet.
Yeah, and again, I mean, Russell has that reputation coming out of high school, but you do have to kind of hold back some when you're playing in high school, but they say he's going to get her. It remains to be seen. I know it's got to happen. It's just got to happen. We just got to have it. I mean, that inside is so important, and those are the guys that got to get it done. So we'll see how it plays out as camp goes on and we get closer to opening up. One of the things I want to answer on the show today is my opinion of because you and I talked about this before. I'm going to tell you, the delusional Auburn fans, and I fully embrace my delusional Auburn fans. I love them. I love them to death. I'm a more reserved Auburn fan.
Yes, you are.
but they believe that Muschamp is the second coming, and he's going to, step A, turn water into wine, and step B, turn this defense into top 3 ranked defense in the nation or something. And I think those expectations are a little bit hopeful. But I put together a list of 5 things that I think we can reasonably expect Muschamp to do. Like, I think he will for sure get these things done. And we'll go through the list, and you can tell me what you think about them.
Okay.
And most of these things, well, in fact, all of them, I think, pretty much are, that we definitely had problems with last year, year before. Number 1, alignment. I think he's just probably going to fix alignment, which is a basic of the game. And Auburn's defense last year was horrible at alignment. Everything kind of goes well or goes bad from there on out. And game after game. And matter of fact, it seemed to get worse last year. Towards the end of the season, it was just worse. And I think that's something Muschamp can either fix or greatly improve. And I think that's kind of what he's all. He's a very disciplined, step A, step B, tenacity kind of guy. He has all those things. I think he'll be able to fix it or at least greatly improve it.
That is 100% mental preparation. You have to have the mindset to go out and play the position, and the first step is knowing your assignment and getting in the right position. That's something Coach Muschamp has always been on top of. I definitely think that's an improvement area for Auburn this year.
Yeah, and you mentioned the word assignment. That's kind of like a step B of number 1, but I used it as number 2 because I wanted to have 5 numbers. But I think he's going to fix that, and knowing your key from a defense standpoint, knowing your keys, again, everything either breaks down from there or goes well from there. And anybody that watched last year as the defense looked completely lost right up until several people, they would just look completely lost right until the ball was snapped. They didn't know their keys. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't know where to go. They just didn't know anything. And then you would see just these blockbuster plays that would happen, and you would just slam your head into the wall. So I think he's going to be able to fix those things, alignment and assignment. We talked number 3 is effort, and again, that was something last year that just wasn't there, man. Yeah. I think a lot of that was probably something between the players and something between the players and the coaches. But they seem to have fixed that. I like the story that came out about how they had all dyed their hair. The team was all dyeing their hair the same color, and they got this camaraderie going, and I think a lot of that's going to lead to increased effort, which is number 3. And number 4 is intensity, and I think that's Muschamp's bread and butter.
Absolutely.
We didn't have any of that last year either.
It's like, haven't had any of that the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So, and I tell you what, intensity, I think, will cover up a multitude of things you don't do well. And you see it, a lot of times you see it in a lot of these guys where they miss the first play, they take the wrong angle, they take the wrong cut, but just all-out intensity and tenacity, they will circle the plate and wind up being on the ball anyway. I mean, a player that will do that, even though he might suck it from the get-go, from the snap of the ball, will make up for it in intensity and determination. And
getting beat is one thing, but getting beaten, that's the ultimate sin in football. You always got to get back up and still try to make the play.
Absolutely. And number 5, I think, is probably a part of all of that, but it's another big Muschamp thing, and I think he'll fix the discipline issues. And we'll talk a little bit more about some issues on offense as well. But I'll tell you, that's something that's been off and on for Auburn the past, I would say, 5 years, where you seem to have a year where there's a lot of discipline and a lot of focus, and then the next year you lose discipline and players are doing stupid stuff, and I don't know. I mean, it's discipline as a whole, and then, of course, discipline to your position and discipline on every snap, but from every angle. I think that's something Muschamp can fix. For all my delusional Auburn fans, though, I think there's some things that Muschamp can't fix, and he can't fix personnel, not now. And, I mean, that's something that you're going to have to – look, all these guys may play above their level, may play above their assignment, and they may look like the best defensive squad in the country, but you just got to know that for several positions especially, it's kind of iffy. Then we don't have depth, which you and I have talked about the last two podcasts, I think. And then you have where Muschamp hasn't had an opportunity yet to recruit specifically for his defense, which is real important when you're a defensive coordinator. And so he's not going to be able to fix all that this year. It just ain't going to happen. You know, I think there's a couple of probably examples that stand out about that. Like, you know, a good example of that would be Carl Lawson, who was back. He's going to be playing at buck position. I think he's probably the perfect guy for that job. But I think he's one of the few positions where we have the perfect guy for the job. And that's, you know, that's just something that it just ain't going to be fixed this year. It ain't going to be fixed.
You know, yeah, it's like you said, it's mainly a depth issue and an experience issue. Muschamp is going to get the most out of his players. They're going to play at levels that you haven't seen these guys play at before. But it's like you said, I mean, they're really still, you know, 2 years out in this defensive system from, you know, making those drastic improvements.
Yeah, because there's still a big luck factor involved. Because I think our number ones, matter of fact, you said this in a previous podcast, I think our number ones could be coached up to play up to probably the highest level or right at it.
Yep.
But God help you if one of our number ones goes down. You know, that's where these things start getting hairy. And surviving the SEC gauntlet healthy is, well, it's just impossible. Nobody does it. So that's one of the things we'll just have to see how it pans out. But nevertheless, it's going to be interesting. It's so funny to me that as big as talked about as Gus was for 2 years, Muschamp is really all my Auburn friends only talk about Muschamp now. It's like they've forgotten about Gus Malzahn. Like they don't talk about any of that anymore.
It's the X factor. It's what's kept Auburn out of a national championship hunt. It's what, you know, stopped them from beating Florida State a couple of years ago. I mean, they just couldn't shut down the Florida State offense at the end of the game. I know there was some, you know, a turnover or, you know, some bad play calling in that game that, you know, contributed to that. But really, that's what has kept Auburn from, you know, being elevated into that next level where they are a serious contender year after year. And I mean, if I was an Auburn fan, you know, I'd be excited. Heck, I'm excited as a Bama fan because really, it's going to make make the SEC a lot more exciting.
I'm excited, but I'm like a crotchety Auburn fan that I am every year. I want you prove it to me, and then I'll get excited.
Well, I think he's going to prove it to you for sure.
All right, we'll talk about the offensive side of the ball. I only have a couple things to talk about there, and one of them is very disheartening. The other one is exciting. We'll do that right after we talk about our brand new sponsor of the show. Today's show is sponsored by an awesome pick service. If you'd like to, like to place a C note with your bookie there every now and then. This is a service called Oddsworth Betting, and they have what they work with is something called a stack hack sheet, and it works a series of plays throughout a week is kind of the way it works. Phenomenal results, and the cool thing about them is they track their results month after month after month, year after year. Their picks so far, obviously college football hadn't started yet, so they've been picking other sports. But so far this year, January through this month, their picks are up $13,000, which ain't too shabby, betting on the weekends. And if you'd like to check them out, you can get picks for absolutely free, and you can see the results of their picks, where they arrive at the $13,000 number and more. All you got to do is go to southeasternfootball.com/win, southeasternfootball.com/win. And I'm going to use them this year, and I'm not going to have to work no more.
Right.
You seem like you believe that, man.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I'll tell you, you can do picks one or two ways. You can have a plan, and these guys can be a part of your plan. You know the services that I used last year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's part of my plan, and it worked. It's way better than somebody don't have a plan. It's way better than somebody betting on a whim. And so check them out. See if they'll be a part of your plan. If they don't fit you, whatever. But we sure appreciate them sponsoring the show. Let's talk about the offense now. Talk about the frustrating thing that made me kick the neighbor's dog earlier is Duke Williams. We missed a practice. We didn't know if he was injured, sick, his family was sick. Then he missed another practice, and Gus Malzahn didn't want to talk about it, and then finally he talked about it, but when he did, he got all agitated as hell about talking about it, which was...
He showed some Saban-esque moments right there.
Yes, he did. But I wonder about him. Last year he missed the Outback Bowl. He was suspended and had discipline issues or some kind of issue, and didn't make the airplane or bus or whatever. And now here we are. The season is just now starting. I mean, this is a guy, Jamie, this is what I don't understand. This is a guy who I don't know how high he could have been drafted. He had that injury he had been trying to work through. I'm sure that probably would have affected his bottom line to some degree because they're just not going to take too big a chance. But I think he would have went pretty high, even with the injury. But, I mean, he decided to come back. And if you're going to come back and pass up a year making money, you would think you would just want to shoot it straight arrow and just really show off as much as you could before the draft,
Yeah, you don't know how some of these kids react. I mean, I'm sure Duke, and I've said this before. I think even last year, Duke was the best receiver in the SEC, probably one of the best in the country, or definitely one of the best in the country, if not the best in the country. The dude's just an absolute beast. He can go up, he can catch the ball. And I think maybe what happened, he did have the problem at the end of the year. Didn't have many problems, in the off season, but maybe all of that just kind of went to his head. Maybe he felt like he was untouchable. It didn't matter what he did or what choices he made. That the repercussions wouldn't be enough where he wouldn't be playing football anymore. And if what I've heard is true about what's happened up there and why he's been suspended, then hats off to Gus for taking those steps.
Well, and I'll tell you, Gus has I would call it a 75% record I like. Yeah. So about 75% of the time, he will make the hard decision, even though he's probably going to hurt the team. But, it's about 25% of the time he don't. And, I haven't been in that position. There's a lot of – if you're a SEC head coach, man, your head is always on the line. And I kind of understand that stuff, but – I tell you, I don't know. It's just a frustrating way to start. But, Gus is giving the same old line. We've asked him to do certain things. He's going to do them. We're going to get him back in line, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. So, I think they should put him in a room alone with Will Muschamp for 30 minutes. And nobody else on offense would want to mess up after that.
Yeah, that might be bad for Duke.
The fun thing that I've enjoyed watching the little blurbs and comments and from the different folks and different forums this week has been the battle between Rock Thomas and Javon Robinson for running back. Now, it kind of had just kind of become the default notion that Robinson was going to be the go-to running back. He probably was going to win that. It could be close, though. It could be where they pretty much split duties 50-50 for the most part, especially for the first few games. But apparently, Rock Thomas has just come and showed out the first week of practices. And so
you had to believe that was going to happen. I mean, the dude is a freak of nature. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he was the go-to guy when season started.
Well, if you'll remember back when we did our roster predictions, I had Rock Thomas as the number one because I think he has an added it factor that Javon Robinson doesn't have. Javon Robinson's a beast. I think he's going to do very well. But Rock Thomas is one of those guys that is able to pull off magical things where you're like, how did he do that?
Yeah.
He just has that quality, and there's running backs that just have that quality, and so for that reason, I've just believed he was going to be the number one. But it's interesting to me now to see everybody else kind of coming around to it. Of course, it's still early; we're a long way from kickoff. We'll see what happens. I still think Gus will probably do what he always does. He seems to really like that methodology. He really likes to split the ball carries, and let's just see who steps up and mans up and by game 4, game 5, we'll know who our guy is. So, but still, I mean, either way, it's a good problem to have, man. It's just a good problem to have.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much out there that's unknown, man. We've got a lot of receivers that look like they're going to be good. Jeremy Johnson looks like he could be good, but all that's unproven, man. All that's unproven, and I think the running game is the easiest thing to pull off without having to have a lot of amazing things in place. I don't know if that makes sense or not. I mean,
it makes sense. It makes sense.
With passing, in the passing game, you got all these timing issues, perfectly run routes, and all these things have to happen to have a good passing game. But for a good running game, you just need a line that knows what they're supposed to do and can do it, and a back that can be awesome. And that's just really pretty much boils down to what you need. So. Yep. I'm counting on them being there. Anyway, look, I'm just happy to have stuff to talk about. That makes me so excited. We've got week 1 in the books now, and it can only, cross my fingers, but it can only pretty much probably get better from here. I think, maybe.
The anticipation is building, man. We've only got, less than a month now. I think I saw 27 days until kickoff today. Auburn opened up against Louisville, Bama, Wisconsin. I'm ready, man. I'm so tired. I tried watching this preseason NFL crap, and I can't get into it. I'm ready to see some real football.
I hear you, brother. Look, if you like talking football, you like the podcast, a reminder, we do an Alabama Crimson Tide podcast as well. It comes down on the same app that you can get in the App Store. You can download that by searching for the Tigers and Tide show. You can go to any of our pages on the website, southeasternfootball.com as well. So make sure that you keep a lookout for that. And we'd also like to invite you to check out something new that we're doing. If you're a real fan of the podcast and you'd just like to give us a hat tip, or you'd like to give us a token of your appreciation for what we do, or just be a part of it. That's what I like best about this Patreon deal, Jamie, is it gives you a chance to where it's a kind of like we're in it together kind of thing, which I think is really awesome. Gives you a chance to show the support and get some rewards by being a Patreon supporter. Supporters of the show get rewards ranging from shout-outs on the show all the way to being co-host on the show with us. And you could even have the show named after you or your business, which to me would be a hoot. I hope that somebody does that level of Patreon support, Jamie, and they don't have a business. They just want us to use their name. And so it'd be like it's the Jim Bob Auburn Tigers football show. That'd be great.
Welcome to the Billy Bob Auburn Tiger football show.
That'd be fantastic. If you're someone who just wants to toss some support away and have fun, or maybe you want to get some exposure for your business, it's very, very easy to do. Nothing would make us happier than to rename our podcast after you. That'd be fantastic. We're just looking to have some fun, and it's one way to keep our show on the air. There are significant costs involved. By the way, I didn't mention this earlier. I did spring the bugs for the Android app, so now Android users, you can go download the free app in the Google Play Store. All you got to do is search for the Tigers and Tide show. So, that set me back $150 right there. And it does cost a little bit of money to do this. We love doing it. We'll do it for free. But look, you want to chip in and help out as you can. If you want to see all the fun ways you can get involved with the podcast through the Patreon project, go to southeasternfootball.com and you can click on the menu link that says Patreon. Or you can just go to southeasternfootball.com/support. southeasternfootball.com/support. We love you and we mean it. Genuinely, from the bottom of my heart. All right, brother. I'll see you on the Alabama podcast. How about that?
All right. Roll Tide, bud.
War Eagle.
Thanks for listening. Download our free iOS app. Just search for Tigers and Tide in the App Store. And subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio. Just search for Tigers and Tide. And for the latest SEC news, log on to southeasternfootball.com.